Third time's a charm, or at least we hope so, here on the All Sorts of Sports podcast, episode 3. Coming to you live from the Lebanon Daily News is Pat Huggins, Game Time PA is John Buffone, and yours truly, Andrew Callahan. All Sorts of Sports is brought to you by no one, because this is a podcast on YouTube. But here we're going to open with the segment that we always do. Fellas, it's the week that was, and what will follow here for us is a new segment called Off the Gridiron, because this is going to be a very football-heavy podcast, open to the NFL, second week of high school football and college in the books, and then we'll get down more into some other segments before wrapping up with our takeaways from the first week of the NFL. But as I mentioned, the week that was your past week, Pat. What have you been up to?
Busy, as you probably know.
I know for a fact.
We've all been for
This question is not for me. It is for the good listeners.
Yeah. Non-football-wise, main thing last week was the Elko Cedar Crest Boys Soccer Ritter Hoffman Cup.
Yep.
Won by Elko for the first time. They ended a 4-game winless streak in that event, 4-2 win over Cedar Crest. And takeaway from that is I hadn't covered that game in a number of years, and I kind of a little bit forgot how fierce that rivalry is, and that was kind of exemplified by some of the chippy play in the second half. It got pretty rough, as anybody that saw the game could tell you. And also, another thing I took away from that, it was just, as I said, I hadn't covered that for a few years. I kind of forgot how meaningful that game is to both teams and how excited Elko was to have won that. That it was a reaction similar to winning a league championship or something like that.
Yeah, annual doubleheader. Last year ended in a tie for them, and as you said, lots at stake. And the girls had played beforehand with the Blue-Gray Cup. Very busy week. And then you were at Palmyra Elko for football last week. How'd that go?
Very impressed again with Palmyra. They jumped out to I believe it was a 23-7 lead. Elko showed some things, came back, made it close, and actually had the ball and the chance to score a touchdown on the last play of the game and possibly force overtime. But another good performance by Palmyra. Running backs Carl Regal and Alon Rhett ran wild, made some big plays, and another good win for Palmyra.
Good week to be a Cougar. How about you, John?
Well, I don't know if it was if it falls into the parameters of last week, because it was actually yesterday on a Monday. But I've been taking in a lot of field hockey, and Penn Manor, who is co-champion with Palmyra for the state championship last year, they went into Manheim Township yesterday and took on the Blue Streaks with first-year coach Renee Suter, who's actually a Penn Manor alum. So she was coaching Manheim Township against her former coach at Penn Manor, and it was just an interesting dynamic to watch, because you kind of see this student-teacher scene kind of taking place where they have similar coaching styles. They had the utmost respect for each other, and it was actually a relatively close game. It was 2-0 Penn Manor, but they had to earn those 2 goals, and it wasn't determined early. I can say that much. So it was kind of cool to talk with them to see the relationship of being a player for Matt Soto, and then becoming a coach, and then coaching against him. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Cool.
And then last week, as far as football goes, I got to see Hempfield and Manheim Central duke it out. 10-3 was the final score there. 1 lone touchdown.
It's a fireworks show.
Yeah, a defensive struggle, to say the least. 1 lone touchdown by Hempfield's quarterback Sam Kramer. Damon Camacho was out for Manheim Central, so they had a few backups in. They're hoping to turn things around this week against your boys at Cedar Crest.
Yeah, Cedar Crest will see Hempfield later on, but you're right, Manheim Central's coming to town this week. We'll break that down a little bit later. And you can also check out our picks in the Gridiron Challenge and GameTimePA.com, see who each of us picked for this week. My week that was, tying into the Off the Gridiron section, I saw Palmyra field hockey yesterday for the first time this season. They went to 4-0, and it was good to see that club, because, Pat, you and I got to cover their home stretch when I joined here late during the playoff run, and how talented and how well coached and how well they played together. And they had, a good time against Hershey. I mean, they had racked up, it seemed like, a half dozen penalty corners in the first 5 minutes, and dominated play, was scoreless at the half, but got up 2-0, and then at 2 minutes left, Hershey scored. Within 21 seconds, they scored again and really put them away. So it was good to see them. For me, otherwise, I had a feature come out on Jared Odrick, which had been in the works for a long time. So I was really happy about that. Really good, down-to-earth guy. And you had told me it was a great interview, Pat, but that didn't even do it justice with the content we have.
Just a very personable guy, very intelligent, and really, really does well in those situations. I think he has a good understanding of how to give a good interview and what kind of as reporters we're looking for, and he's always been good at that. But I noticed when I talked to him at his charity golf thing over the summer, he's and you would expect, but he's even improved at that. I mean, he's really, really polished now and really does a nice job.
Yeah, we talked on a lot of different topics, and it was out in Sunday's paper. You can still find it online, talking about his change to go play for the Jacksonville Jaguars and sign with a 5-year contract. So feel free to give that a read. But otherwise, moving now into football, because again, this is really going to dominate the rest of the podcast. There are 3 teams left in Lebanon County that are undefeated. We're looking at Anvil, Cleona, Palmyra, in northern Lebanon. Now, we're going to be out at a couple of their games this week and next. But the real question is, who among them is going to remain undefeated the longest? And we have a division here. I'm going to lead off. I'm going to go with northern Lebanon, and for a couple of different reasons. Having seen them last week against Lebanon, I think the strength of their team is really going to carry over no matter what opponent that they're playing, and that has been well advertised as up front. Their offensive and defensive lines really had their way with Lebanon, went on to a 51-27 win last Friday, and I think that'll really carry over. The first time that they're going to have to worry about it is in mid-October when they meet Anvil Cleona, who potentially could also be undefeated till that point. They will have had to play Elko and Pequay Valley, but I think the way those teams have started out the season, there's no reason not to be all but confident in Northern Lebanon to remain undefeated the longest.
Pat, you want to you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to take Anvil Cleona on this one because just looking at the schedules, and there's a very real, like you said, a real possibility that they're both undefeated until they meet each other down the line. But looking down the schedule, Anvil Cleona has to go to Donegal, and then they host Elko, and then they're at Ephrata, at Kutztown, and then they travel to Northern Lebanon. And then Northern Lebanon has to go to Hamburg. They face Ephrata at home, at Pequay Valley, and then Williams Valley, and then they run into Anvil Cleona. I look at down the games of possible losses here, and I know they didn't start the season off well, but I think there's a chance that Northern Lebanon could go to Pequay Valley and potentially stumble there. I don't know if you want to call me a homer because I'm not from Pequay Valley, but I've been on the Pequay Valley train for a while, and I think that that's a potential trap game for them. Although Elko is going to give Anvil Cleona all they can handle in a couple weeks here, but I think it's just going to be Anvil Cleona. I look down the schedule and I just see Northern Lebanon tripping up before they do, and if they don't, it's going to be a heck of a showdown whenever they meet down the line.
I think Andrew and I are going to be in agreement on that one. I'm going to go with Northern Lebanon. I think the schedule favors them. I think the way they're playing right now favors them. Anvil's got, as John mentioned, Anvil has some tests coming up. Palmyra's going to, I believe in 2 weeks, has Trinity. That's going to be a test as well. And I just think Northern Lebanon looks like to be in the best shape to be the last team undefeated.
And I think it's a tough question, too, because schedule, I think we all alluded to it without even attempting to play such a large role in this question. But Palmyra, 2-0, just like the two teams that we've picked here so far, has looked really impressive. A good win against Elko, open win on the road against East Pennsboro, but it is that tough mid-Penn that you don't really see as much of played in Section 3, albeit a very competitive and good conference. But I think at some point down the road, they know they're going to face a tougher test, and it'll just come before you see it for Anvil or Northern Lebanon.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily saying who do we think is the best team. It's just who's going to stumble the first, or who's going to can keep their undefeated record the longest. So this doesn't necessarily determine who the best team is. It's just who's going to stay unblemished until the.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Anvil. It's certainly not a given that Anvil or Palmyra is going to lose in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to come out on top in those games. Again, the schedule and the probability of it, I think favors Northern Lebanon.
And looking at Anvil, I mean, chatting with Coach Matt Gingrich before the season, I know he's very happy with the leadership of Adam Fox, the quarterback who's played very, very well and pulled out that opening win against Biglerville in double overtime. The thing for me was, and understandably so, when you have a new coach and really culture come in, it's just they wanted to up their conditioning. And that was something for me is so fundamental. You don't know how they're going to win games early on. Well, so far they've pulled it off. 2-0 start, as we said, and I just wonder how that's going to play out further down the road, which is why I went with the Vikings. But the Little Dutchmen, I think, are going to have very good games coming up, namely Schuylkill Valley this Friday, and I think they're going to pay a visit to Donegal after that.
Yeah, they're at Donegal.
So we'll get right into Section 3, and Donegal's going to see Palmyra this weekend. So I know they're a little bit down, but if you're not prepared for that wing T offense, I mean that can get running and going real quick.
It's not a walkover. Donegal's had a little bit of problems scoring enough points, but that, like you said, if you don't properly prepare for the wing T, because you don't see it every week, and you certainly don't practice against it every week, it can catch you by surprise if you're not properly prepared.
Yeah, unless you're like a wing T scholar, you're in that locker room. You are not seeing this.
I'm guessing the Palmyra coaches used the words assignment football a few times this week with defensing the wing T, because you got to really be state of your responsibilities defense and not freelance, because that'll burn you against the wing team.
Yeah, if you try to float around and just try to make plays off instinct, then you're not exactly a professional with the wing team.
Yeah.
You can be out of position by
Absolutely.
a mile and look silly. So yeah, definitely a sign of football.
You speaking from experience there back in your playing days, or?
Well, my school used to run the wing team.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's something that if you're not, you have to stick to your assignment, because if you don't,
So you're that wing tee scholar that I was just talking
I
about
wouldn't
a
call
minute
myself
ago.
a scholar, but I've seen enough wing tee offense to know that if a team decides to, like as Pat said, decides to freelance a little bit, they can sometimes be in the right spot, but other times be in the complete wrong spot. So it's something that can catch you off guard if you're not ready for it.
So that just wraps it up. The team in Lebanon County that we think is going to go undefeated the longest, for me, it's Northern Lebanon. Pat, likewise. John going with Anvil Cleona. The one team we're leaving out, of course, being Palmyra. A couple 0-2 teams going head-to-head. One is going to get their first win, Lebanon at Elko. I know we broke this down in the Game Time PA TV show this week in terms of their games, so feel free to check that out and see who we believe is going to come out 1-2. Penn State could fall to 1-2 if they drop a night game Saturday against Rutgers. Though thankfully for Nittany Lion fans, they had a nice bounce-back win against Buffalo. Final score doesn't strike a lot of confidence, 27-14, but they did get up 27-7 and hit their stride there in the second half. I have no thoughts left in this game because I wrote about 2,000 words on it, which
Your thoughts have been poured out.
which they've been
well
out there. So feel free to find them online with their new Penn State Tale of the Tape series. But guys, we're going to hit upon this every week, and obviously after the Temple loss, there weren't many happy words shared about the Nittany Lions. But original impressions, first quick thoughts about Buffalo, and then how the night game against Rutgers might unfold.
Hey, Buffalo's tough.
One letter away from being the Buffalo Bills, but these were the Buffalo Bulls.
Yeah, Buffalo's tough. No, I think that, I guess you can take some positives out of this, that the line played better. Statistically, looking at your tail of the tape, they performed a little bit better.
Sounds like you did your research there.
Yeah, I did my due diligence here. But as far as a slow start again, if you can have a slow start against Buffalo, and you can still come out on top, with multiple touchdown differential. You can't have a slow start. Maybe even against Rutgers, you can do that. But if you're looking to be any kind of a contender in the Big Ten, you're not going to be able to come out slow against a Michigan State or an Ohio State or almost any other team in the Big Ten. You might not be able to do that against. So as much as you can take some positive out of that, you should still be a little bit weary unless you got to play a full game. You got to be able to put a complete game together. And if not,
You think they do that Saturday?
no. I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think that they're gonna. I think that they will probably pull it out. I think you're gonna see a lot of stumbling again because I just think that they're.
I think it's fair.
Some teams just stumble out of the gates.
Pat?
Yeah, I think they took a step in the right direction last week, but I would say very small steps and not anything to get overly excited about yet. But it was a step in the right direction, and I think you'll know a little more after this week with Rutgers. If they continue to move forward, then that's a good sign. If they kind of tread water a little bit and do the same thing they did against Buffalo, I don't know. Again, I can't get too excited over beating Buffalo. Not overly impressively.
Yeah, they come out like gangbusters against Rutgers. Then maybe you say, okay, we're starting to churn on all the cylinders. But I mean, I'm more of a don't tell me, show me kind of person, and I'm not going to get on board with something that I haven't seen yet. So until they do it, I'm not going to believe that they can do it.
So if you're a don't tell me, show me, what are you doing on this podcast? We got my guy in the corner there. This is where you go, well, I do videos every single week. So how's that?
I do show you every day of the week. I show you all the action.
At Gold's Gym in Lancaster, I show you.
Yeah.
I'm John Buffone.
There's a real show, Gold's Gym in Lancaster. 2 hours a day, be there.
I am.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I said, I kind of spilled out all my thoughts into the tail of the tape this week. I think it was a good step forward. Rutgers will be pretty telling. They've got all the reason in the world to play better. It's a night game. I know they've got the cool stripe out going, so it'll be alternating sections with blue and white. And it's a lot of young guys in there, too. I mean, people forget that they're down scholarship players given against your average program, but I think you're right, John. Until you see it against the team where you go, okay, we're getting up for this game of Michigan State, Ohio State, which right now they're not even close to being on the same level, and that's okay because you do have other games going forward where you're going to be able to build up. I think it's just important that they make progress. I don't think they need to look for a complete game because after this you've got San Diego State and then Army at home, and I think one more after that, Indiana might be the team coming in on the 9th, and then they've got to go to Ohio State for their first road game, which even then you're not expecting a win, but at least be playing your best once that time rolls around about a month.
And I saw a lot of, and I understand that sometimes, with that wet weather, you can have some issues, and there's, slipping and sliding interaction. But I saw way too many people on social media saying that they got their slow start because of the rain, as if Buffalo also as if Buffalo also was not playing in the same condition. Look, if you think you have a good team, and there's plenty of Penn State fans that think they do,
they've got enough talent.
Yeah, if you think that you have a legitimate Division I football team, you should never have to say, well, it was because of the rain. Because good football teams, or good teams in anything, fight through the conditions. They fight through the elements, and you can't say, well, we got off to a slow start against Buffalo because it was raining. So, if you think you have a good team, stick by it. Don't make excuses.
You know what I think too, and again, you can find this in the article. I freaking wrote the whole game down.
Tail of tape.
It was they might have, whether for reasons they thought they could just blow them off the ball, or they were a little overcautious with respect to the rain. They were really conservative early on. But when they opened it up and let Hackenberg throw at each different level of the field and go right to left in the middle, they did fine. And for me, that's got to be the blueprint going forward, because you got the kids on the outside who can win one-on-ones, particularly against Buffalo. So that's really a coaching thing, which was better than against Temple, where Temple was changing things up and having a lot of success getting in the backfield. Penn State did nothing and got run over. So I think that change is going to be the same. Is that what you saw, Pat, too, or is it more just they're not that good?
Well, I think they need to have a little more confidence in Hackenberg and let him, maybe move him around in the pocket a little bit, get something to buy him time. He's the guy that's going to make plays for you on that.
Yeah.
And you have to put him in the position to do that. And obviously you have to protect him, but I think you gotta come up with schemes. And I'm no X and O genius, but you gotta come up with schemes that maximize his talents and give him the the time to get the ball out and get it to his guys that can make plays for him.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and to exactly what Pat said, if you have trouble protecting your playmaker, as if the offense should revolve around him, because he's your best asset on offense, keep him upright, because if you are down the schedule where he continues to get beaten up, and they did a better job against Buffalo.
They didn't have a sack, and he got hit, I think, twice.
Right. So they did a better job, and when he has time, he can make plays. So to your point, play with confidence. Play as if you're the superior team. Play a little bit more wide open. Let your playmaker make plays, and don't be so conservative against teams like Buffalo. And you might have a little more success. When you go into a shell like they did against Temple, you saw the ramifications of that.
Right. Some people who might be wanting to go into a shell are certain players who might have had Christian Hackenberg in their new college football DFS games, which I know one of them was our good friend Mike Waterloo, which brings us to our next segment, which, John, you inadvertently created last time. We went off, I think it's fair to say, a Hall of Fame rant about slow pitch softball and the guys who play it. For those of you who missed that, please do go back to episode 2 of the All Sorts of Sports podcast, unless you play slow pitch softball, at which point you will be highly offended.
If we only had 3 or 4 more hours, I'm still steamed.
So the new segment is called You Mad Bro, and this isn't going to be the kind of fake anger that you find on First Take every morning at 10 a.m. on ESPN2, which is just...
Give them a free plug, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, and listen, those guys don't need more plugs, unfortunately. The ratings are still going up. The stuff that's totally manufactured and garbage. But you figure between the three of us who work and surround ourselves with sports all week, there's going to be something where we're not giving a thumbs up or cheering along with or happy to see. So John's was last week when he went to the slow pitch softball tournament. Yes, did have his card dinged, but also lost to these guys who he didn't exactly want to lose to. For me, this is an ongoing thing, and it's going to be my turn with the You Mad Bro segment.
You Mad Bro.
But let me ask you this question. Are you looking for a fantasy league without season-long commitment? Would you like the chance to have a new team each week if possible?
This is an Ashley Madison thing?
Try out, good Lord, no. This is worse. This is DraftKings and FanDuel advertising, which I swear you cannot escape from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go back to bed, whether you're watching football, whether you're trying to do homework, or you're cooking dinner. It is nonstop on the radio, on TV, online, no matter where I turn, and I get it. It's a booming industry. It's a genius idea. I'm partially mad I didn't think of it first, but holy hell, can we not go without all these parts of the days interrupted with daily fantasy sports? I mean, for me personally, as like a football purist, I'll just say, to sound 30 years older than I am for a second, but get off my lawn about the fantasy stuff, because we don't have fantasy sports without real sports. And right now, the bigger picture and the more noise is surrounding fantasy. And I get it. For ESPN or sports networks who naturally promote sports, it's only going to make sense to have a fantasy segment or a fantasy show. But the advertising is driving me crazy. And it's silly because at some point I've got to make the change because it's not going anywhere. More people are playing every day. But holy crap, I change your pitch at least.
Yeah.
I understand that there are these leagues now where, wow, you don't have to commit for an entire season. I don't want to commit at all. I want to commit to something new.
Yeah.
Music, art, getting out of sports or fantasy. Ugh.
You can't even click on a Twitter video anymore without having Rob Gronkowski tell you that you can win $2 million this weekend with no commitments.
Right. Yeah. How many Joe Schmoes am I going to say, hey, I won $56,000? Good for you.
I won $425 million on FanDuel.
Yeah. My wife left me, but hey, look at this extra dough. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It's
I know a couple years ago, I got into the fantasy for a while and was kind of had a phase with that. And
yeah, we had a league in the office this year.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm tired of it. I can't do it anymore. It doesn't.
And this is so just
I think it's just
old man
overwhelming.
curmudgeon. I hate the vibe that I'm giving off right now.
Yeah,
And it reminds me of when, John, like you said, the videos came out, or you'd start to see advertising everywhere you went. I mean, I know this is going to be something I say down the road to my kids, which is just one day there were videos where you didn't have to watch an ad first. You just went to YouTube and there it was. And now it's like, can you imagine a time before, football season where you ever had an ad that wasn't DraftKings or FanDuel? Because I'm having a really hard time doing that, and it's bothering me.
It's unbelievable, and it's weird. It's interesting to track the progress of this because I remember my first fantasy football league was in 1999. I was 11 years old. And this is a time when you had to email your picks to the commissioner, and a draft took roughly 2 or 3 days to complete.
Wow.
And it was, at that time, it was the coolest thing in the world. And to this day, I still play fantasy football, but I play in leagues where it's a year-long thing with your buddies, and, there's a little bit of money or what have you, or,
Allegedly.
play money. But that I mean, because that's fun, because you're with your friends. Now it's turned into... Do you want to turn $1 into $400 million?
Yeah.
Do you want to? And you set your line. And there's people, and I know, and some of my friends are like this. They're addicted to daily fantasy football. They have to set their lineup every day because they're getting into a $2 game, or they're playing in $5-6 games.
Right, and
it's almost the same as the people that stand in line at the convenience store every day and they get their 45 scratch-off tickets and they're trying to hit it big. So I need this scratcher. I need this scratcher. I need this scratcher. Give me a $50 one. Give me a $20 one. Give me a $10 one. And let me start scratching them off. Oh, a free ticket.
But at least there, when you're going to the store, they're there. You know that they're there. They're not everywhere you turn, whether you're on the bus or in the car or watching TV. Hey, buy these certain amount of tickets. Right. It's just nonstop. And again, I get it. If I were in that business, why not take a super aggressive approach when the market is there? But man, am I sick of seeing that. And it's just so much. And it's cool if it's your thing. Again, it's a great idea. But man, I cannot wait for it to be not football season when I'm watching commercials because I can't escape it.
Then you got fantasy basketball, which is
which again is more everyday stuff.
Then they turn into the March Madness thing on FanDuel and DraftKings, where they have when March Madness comes up, it goes nuts. The Masters tournament for golf explodes. I have a friend who was all about the Masters fantasy thing on FanDuel, and then obviously fantasy baseball. You got to set your lineup every day for that.
Yeah, I'm big into fantasy baseball, and I think it's a cool thing. It's just the advertising in the
daily fantasy baseball.
Yeah, sorry. Set your lineup. A new season every day.
There's no commitments, Andrew. You can win $25 billion.
Here's the worst part, is this whole segment, as much as it's been negative, it's been just promoting them more and more.
We're giving them a free 15-minute commercial.
In the cash register going now.
Yeah. And the thing that really gets me, too, is that my favorite one, which I think it might be exclusive to just radio, is when they go, do you think you're above average at fantasy sports? And who listening to that, guys especially, is going to go, nah, I kind of suck. Because if you ask me, hey, Andrew, have you ever figure skated before? Are you above average at figure skating? The idiot guy in me, is going to pause and go, I just might be, but I haven't given it a try. So, of course, with fantasy sports, something that I've done before and succeeded at, I'm going to say, above average. No, I'm good. I know I'm good. But here's the thing.
They'll match your first deposit.
If there's a winner somewhere, of course there's a loser. And in between, there's FanDuel and DraftKings taking a small side out of that,
the juice,
which is of course how they run their business, and ultimately, you hook everybody on that, and it's a good point, but I just don't want to hear that, because the more you tell me, and this is the whole deal, the more I'm going to think, yeah, of course I'm above average. Let me prove it to you. Here's $10.
Well, here's what you sound like Jerry Seinfeld right now. Here's what happened. What are you doing? But what has happened here is what it has done is grasped fringe fans to the max. It has turned fringe fans into people watching Jaguars and
Panthers.
Buccaneers
Last
and
week it
Panthers.
happened.
Yes, where people are watching games
Outside of Jared Odrick fans.
that have absolutely no impact on anything, or they're not a fan of anything, and they're staying up on college nights watching the 10:30 game between Texas, El Paso, and Hawaii.
Okay, well, Pac-12 After Dark is a real thing, and it's really awesome. But I get what you're saying. Certain games should not be watched.
They're watching Louisiana Lafayette and Louisiana Tech.
Games you would only watch with an adult
You're
beverage.
streaming online because they're not on TV, and you're watching it with such intent because you started one of their guys because he was really cheap in the daily fantasy football thing, which, by the way, now they're getting the whole thing, is daily fantasy football gambling? Is it not gambling?
Yeah.
So this is going to go through the same thing that Napster did, I think, at some point, where it's going to be like, well, it's not really stealing it. It's kind of just like we're sharing it. And this is like, it's not really gambling. It's like, it's a game of skill. So
And it's tough because, again, it's fun. It's about sports. You have your own control. But for me, I don't want to hear about it anymore.
It's the stock market of sports, and there's plenty of dumb people that are pumping billions of dollars into it.
Yep.
So, well, whatever. Have your fun. If you win, good for you. You can be on a commercial and tell everyone how much you won.
You mad, bro?
Yeah, I'm mad, bro. Next week it's going to be Pat's turn, so come back and hopefully we don't go off the rails as
They're
that
out of
segment
slushies
did.
at Turkey Hill.
Bar's been set pretty high.
But Pat, we'll come back to you on a happy note because this is where we wrap up with our takeaways from the week 1 of the NFL season. Pat, a Cowboys fan, you experienced all the peaks and valleys that the players and coaches say they never endure, but they do, and you did. What was it like watching Eli Manning gift-wrapped a 1-0 record to start your
I
season?
think there's some thank you cards that that was really amazing to me that a guy like Eli has won 2 Super Bowls. Tom Coughlin has won 2 Super Bowls as a coach. Just have a complete brain meltdown at that moment. I mean, if Giants either run the ball and or take a sack in that situation, Dallas has almost no time to drive down the field at the end.
Yeah, if they don't pop a couple dumb pills in the middle of that.
I mean, Romo was fantastic the last 2 drives. You have to give him credit. But, he doesn't get that last chance without the Giants.
That rematch is going to be great. Because all we're going to see leading up is just replays of that last series.
You'll see that a few thousand times in the replay.
In between all the DraftKings commercials. John, your takeaways from finally getting an NFL Sunday under your belt?
There's a few things. One being the NFC East is going to be a lot more wide open, I think, than people thought it was going to be. Now with the Cowboys without Dez Bryant, they say 4 to 6, but some of the professionals that say that it could be up to 10 weeks that Dez Bryant misses out.
4 to 6, John.
Yeah, okay. he'll be back in 2 weeks.
Pat's sources might be a little skewed. They reside in his head.
I don't think talking about 10 weeks.
The voices in my head say 2 weeks. But you look at the Eagles' performance, and it wasn't anything explosive like we thought. Yeah, they had a good second half, but much like Penn State, they when the gate opened, they just fell on their face and then kind of sat there and ate some dirt for a little bit, and then decided to get up.
Boy, you love bringing that up, huh?
Yeah. So I don't think that the Chip Kelly holier than thou system was necessarily a huge success. Did they play well? Yeah, towards the end, but they lost the game. So I think that division is going to be a lot more wide open than expected, I guess. And another thing I took away is I am an unabashed Chicago Bears fan. They play, yeah, and I'm not mad at Jay Cutler. I mean, you should expect it by now that eventually, if he plays well, he'll throw a pick at the end. But it was. I didn't like when the Bears fans on Twitter started. Well, 2 things. I don't like when they bash the quarterback because it wasn't all him. 2, people saying that they were happy that we just stayed within 8 points of the Packers because I don't care if you lose by 8 or you lose by 40. You lost the game. Like, I don't know if you can be happy with a loss at any time. I hate losing, and I hate losing to the Packers. So I'm not happy we lose by 8. I'm not happy we lose by 10. I'm not happy we lose by 40. It still sucks. I'm tired of that smug.
This is you Aaron mad bro part 2. I thought that segment ended.
Smug-faced Aaron Rodgers having his way with the Bears every time.
Aaron Rodgers is great. Let's not
so
speak ill of him.
That's why I'm mad because he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and I'm mad that
we're back to you mad bro.
I have a guy that looks like he should be smoking Marlboro Reds in the sideline, not even carrying with his hat backwards. But Andrew, those are my takeaways.
Yes. Gonna give John a minute to breathe here. Here's where you're wrong though. You're happy if you only lost by 3 because there's this thing called the spread, okay. and that's a big point as to why you might be happy where you lost by a little. But that'll be for another topic entirely. I'll keep mine short. Going to a different part, you mentioned the NFC East is going to be wide open. I would tend to agree. I think Philly's going to be better than they showed. The AFC East, on the other hand, is going to be a division that's much more wide open. All 4 of those teams are 1-0, and 2 of them are going to go head-to-head with the Bills and the Patriots. Patriots beating the Steelers. Steelers, like the Eagles, I think are going to play better than they showed in their first week. Again, these takeaways should be on just such a micro level. Like there are 15 games to go. But with regards to the AFC East, I think you see 3 teams that have lined up and stacked the rosters to knock off the Patriots with very dominant defensive lines. In New England, for folks who don't know, started 3 rookies in the middle of their offensive line, which are going to have real problems. I think the Bills are for real. I know it's an overreaction that everyone's pointing to this week, but they've got more talent than Rex Ryan ever had in New York, and he took 2 teams to the AFC Championship. So that's going to be really interesting and impressive to watch. I don't think they're a doormat anymore for the Patriots to go on. Who knows who comes out of the AFC?
And
I think the Steelers will be in that mix.
They're not even talking about the Dolphins, who have a lot of skill.
Right. They struggled in D.C. against Kirk Cousins and his cousins, but it was
that with a grain of
a team that's the team that's going to pick number 1 overall in the next NFL draft. But
we'll see about that.
Yeah, Bears giving you a run. But I think it's going to be a very exciting year, and I think, as we both inadvertently alluded to, some more parity than we've seen in past years, where you could just have chalk in every single division, almost down to the last one. So I think this is a lot of fun. This was third time was about the charm. At least we had 1.5 You Mad Bro segments. We'll come back next week, see what's grinding Pat's gears. But for now,
it'll be Subway related.
I'll get you something.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. For now, this is So Long from Pat Huggins and John Buffon, our producer Jeremy Long. This is Andrew Callahan from the Lebanon Daily News, All Sorts of Sports. We'll be right back here next week.